Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Dussault?
Present.
Ms. Schwartz? Mr. Runge?
Present.
Mr. Crisafulli?
Here.
Ms. Cunningham?
Here.
Mr. Downey? And Chairman Zimmerman.
Here. And for the record, I understand that Ms. Schwartz has requested an excused absence. Is that correct?
And your microphones are all on, I hope? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes. Yes, she is.
Okay, and we haven't heard from Mr. Downey, so maybe he's on the way, stuck behind traffic also, hopefully. Okay, first item on the agenda this morning is the approval of the minutes of our November 21st meeting. Are there any additions or corrections necessary?
I don't.
Okay, hearing none, Chair would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The minutes are approved unanimously. Next item on our agenda this morning is the election of officers for the coming year. We postponed this from our November meeting because we had a smaller turnout than we had today. So the floor is open for nominations for the position of chairman.
I so make a motion to nominate Carl Zimmerman as chairman.
I second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, the chair will close the nominations for chairman, and I thank you for your ongoing support. I guess I should call for a vote on that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Well, thank you. Now I can thank you for.
Congratulations.
Thank you. The next item, as we see, is the position of vice chairman, and the floor is open for nominations, please.
I so move to nominate Dan Downey as vice chairman.
Okay, there's a motion for Mr. Downey as vice chairman. Is there a second to that motion?
Second that. Second.
There's a second to the motion. Are there any other motions from the floor? Okay, hearing none, I'll close the nominations. All in favor of Mr. Downey as vice chairman, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. We'll congratulate Dan if and when he arrives today. And I'm sure he will talk to his accountant about adjusting his tax plan for this year because of the large payments associated with being elected to that prestigious position. Okay, enough frivolity. Audience participation. There is someone in the audience. Please step forward to the microphone and introduce yourself, please, ma'am.
Good morning, committee members. I'm Tammy Adams, Executive Director of Main Street, Vero Beach.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning and welcome. I see today, according to the agenda, you're taking the position of two people. So
That's
I
correct.
congratulate you.
Yes, well, thank you. Believe me, and very hard to replace, too. Yes, Robin and Mark and Olska and Vicky and all of those folks all had prior engagements, couldn't be there this morning. So I've come here this morning to talk with you about the hanging baskets and downtown pots and all of our streetscape beautification, and answer any questions that you may have with regards to the next couple of things coming up in the agenda as well.
Okay, great.
I do have some photographs here of what's been happening downtown and our baskets, our hanging baskets, if you all would like to take a look on your monitors there. These are some of the potted plants that have been done by various nurseries. There are 8 nurseries in total that have contributed to the pot planting program. And we're just really happy at how wonderful they all look and how it's blossomed downtown. It's night and day from what it was before the holidays. So we're just really happy about it. And the plaques that are in each of the pots, and we're getting ready to hang the plaques for the hanging baskets. It'll hang underneath the hanging baskets for the nursery, for Busy Bee, who did all of the hanging baskets. And with the streetscape, these are some of the folks from the Rotary Club of Vero Beach Sunrise that helped us. They painted the pots for us to do the planting in. and also we are continuing to sell pecans to help offset some more of our expenses, and do have a few of those jars of pecans left at the office. So we are continuing to fundraise to continue this on, and those pecans were all done by a committee of people, and Chris Byerly was kind enough to allow us to use Osceola Bistro and do the cooking and help put this all together. So it was a good group effort. And the hanging baskets, above them are banners on 8 of the street poles. And there are 15 banners because there is one street pole that's over by Jetson that we could only use one side of for the banners. So the plants that are in those hanging baskets are sweet potato vine, petunia, million bells, geranium, bacopa, and alyssums. So it's an assortment of those flowers that Busy Bee chose to put into the hanging baskets. So we have thus far, we still have sponsorship opportunities available. We have 3 pots that have been sponsored thus far. 2 from the Garden Club of Indian River County and 1 from Carissa Circle Garden Club members, and we thank them very much. We have 1 of the hanging baskets sponsored thus far from the Cultural Council of Indian River County, so we appreciate that from them. And we also have 6 banners thus far that have been sponsored. Buckingham Wheeler, the Garden Club of Indian River County, Gould and Associates, the Main Street Studios and Gallery Artists, Penny Chandler, and Solitaire Landscape Architecture. So there are 16 pots in total at the beginning, 16 pots in total that are available for sponsorship. The hanging baskets, obviously, we have 8 street poles, so we have 8 hanging baskets. So there are 7 left there. And the banners, there are 15 banners that are also available. So we're on our way to getting all of those sponsorships covered. And the hope is that now that we've got this program up and running and we've seen the results of it, that we can start to fundraise more to replicate this in other blocks around the city. So I'll entertain any questions that you all may have.
Folks?
Well, the lady who donated from my circle, Carissa, the
Yes.
Garden Club, will she be receiving a thank you, or do we?
Yes,
You
yes.
will be.
Everybody
Okay.
will be receiving
All
thank
right,
yous
thank
for
you.
the sponsorships,
Yeah,
absolutely.
She gave 200.
Yes, that's correct. We'll be sending out letters as we get them in. We're going to be sending out letters, so you're welcome.
How do you contact someone who might be interested in sponsoring?
Anybody that's interested in sponsorship there's 2 different ways. They can call our office at 643-6782 and talk with me about sponsorship opportunities. They can go onto our website, which is mainstreetverobeach.org, and go on to the events page, and you'll see on the events page a project, which is the Baskets to Banners program. And the brochure, which I've brought copies of if anybody wants them, this brochure is available online, and payment can be made online as well for any of the sponsorships. So they can come by the office and pick up a brochure, they can get it online, they can call me, I can mail them one, whatever's easiest.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
What methods are you using to solicit sponsorships? In other words, certainly people who may be watching this or watch this on TV after our meeting are going to know about it, but outside of that and your membership, who certainly knows about your project because your group's sponsoring it, how would the general community know? Have you contacted any of the media to see if you can get an article written about it or whatever?
Absolutely, yes, Carl. We last week sent out a press release with many of these photographs that you see here today, along with information about sponsoring the baskets and where they can go to. Same place I've directed everybody today, to the website, or calling us or coming by the office. So we've sent all that out to the media, and as soon as they decide to publish it in whatever form they decide to publish it in, that will help us get it out to the general community, the availability of these sponsorships, and that this is an ongoing program. It's not just a splash. We wanted to get it all done. We wanted to get it all done in this block and show how effective and how beautiful it can be so that we can replicate it. So that has been done.
Well, that's great, and we commend you for the work that you've done and the cooperation that you've been able to generate. I would suggest, I don't know if you've contacted Marcia to see if you can come on the WTTB radio program, which gets replicated through the other stations. But I would imagine that she'd be happy to have you come on and discuss the project and the sponsorship aspect, because it is a community event.
Well, certainly I'll make sure that we make that happen and have Robin go ahead and present that to Marcia and be on her show, so we can
Great.
make those arrangements. That's fine.
It's
That'd be
just
good.
another
Can't hurt.
avenue, and
Absolutely.
there's no cost associated.
Right,
So
right.
That's nice also. The question of the plantings are, what kind of commitment do you have for replacement if there's, if this cold spell tonight gets worse than anticipated and you have some damage to the plant material? Has that been addressed?
In the agreement that all of the nurseries signed, they agreed to do the plantings and maintain the plantings. If there's any damage, they will replace the plants that are damaged so that they maintain a consistent look. And we don't have some dead spots or anything like that. So, and many of the nurseries, because we put the call out when we had, about a week ago, when we had a threat of a freeze, we did put the call out to the nurseries asking if they wanted us to do anything. So we've been cooperating with all of the nurseries at making sure that if we need to cover something or do whatever, and that'll probably be happening tonight. Some of the nurseries are doing their own. And those that don't have time or don't have the manpower to do so, then we'll be making sure that we're taking precautionary measures to not lose anything if we can avoid it.
Okay, great. And is it reasonable to assume that your committee are going to be monitoring the baskets and planting so that if there is damage or vandalism or whatever, that your committee will be the focal point to let the various nurseries and sponsors know about, some problems that need to be addressed? Is that a reasonable assumption?
That is a reasonable assumption, yes. That's exactly what will be happening.
Great.
We'll continue to monitor it on an ongoing basis, and if there are any issues, we'll be addressing them with each of the nurseries.
Okay, great. Did anyone have any questions or comments about the choice of plant material used?
No, from my end, and I don't want to speak for everybody, it's nice to finally see this long, bumpy road of this project come to a point where I think it represents what initially we had wanted it to be, and now it's actually where I think we're all proud to, put our name behind it. And thank you for your efforts, and I think it looks great.
Thank you, thank you. I mean, it took an army of people to make
Yes.
this happen, and the list is very, very long, and all of those people, I hope that the papers will pick up and mention in the articles that they do, because it is a very long list of folks that have chipped in their time, talent, and funds to make sure that this came to fruition, and I do agree that the end result is really nice. Looks really nice downtown.
Well, Tammy, I congratulate Dan on comments that were well said, and I think we all echo those. We're very pleased with the fact that your leadership, or at least coordination, has helped bring this to fruition. And as Dan stated, I think we can all be very proud, and the city of Vero Beach can be proud of what started, and hopefully it will continue to move. And as you get ready to think about extending the projects, please come back to us to talk about where you'd like to do it, and so that we can make allocations for the hanging basket planters, which are not inexpensive.
No.
And we can make request of the allocation of those funds from our funding that is available for this type of beautification activity. So I knew you'd be back, but I just wanted to confirm that.
Yes, we will. Hopefully it won't be too long. Hopefully within the next season we'll be able to do that and come back and start replicating. Absolutely.
Well, that's
and
great.
and I can't take credit because really Robin Polensky and the design committee are the ones that have spearheaded this entire thing. And I've just been kind of in the background helping in any way I can to support them. So I appreciate the kind
Well,
remarks.
They
We
look
thank
great,
you.
and hopefully the allocated irrigation that's in place now, and that's another thing, your committee is going to kind of have to watch out for that relative to any damage or vandalism or whatever.
Right.
Because that'll be as we enter into the summer months, that'll be a quick demise if they don't get water, as we well know.
Right. But
So-
Nanette and I have been in close communication on that, and I know Nanette is working on monitoring that.
Yeah, and we go through, the irrigation techs go through it and kind of keep an eye on it. And that's another
Are
thing.
your
that,
people doing that?
yeah, I mean, it's our irrigation zone. The same irrigation system that does all of the landscaping and the bulb outs
Right, it's just an
runs that.
extension,
So,
right.
but the drip irrigation can get clogged rather easy. So, it does. It will become apparent if things start getting a little droopy.
Yes.
And, she'll just give me a call. But I did want to say, too, the irrigation installation went so smoothly. The public works crews worked together very well, did a great job. You can't even tell that the bricks were pulled up and put
No.
back. So it was, and they did it very quickly, very
Absolutely.
smooth, no problem.
It's like you didn't even know they were there.
Yeah,
They were
yeah.
very unobtrusive.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Everybody was
that
very happy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
That's great. Now, the monetary viability of your getting funding and continuing, of course, is predicated, I'm sure, on getting more sponsorships
Correct.
to move this forward so
Correct.
that you'll have the funds to be able to extend the program.
Exactly. And like you said, the hanging baskets are not cheap, but the poles and streetlights in which to attach those hanging baskets are not cheap either. So there's, $1,000 or more dollars in every street pole that would have to be put into place in other areas. So we have to start building funds to be able to replicate it in another block.
So am I to extrapolate from that you're talking about adding lighting?
The whole decorative, this whole block was done as a representative of what can be done in other areas of the
Right,
city.
I understand.
So they installed several years ago the decorative street lighting, the pavers, the benches have been an ongoing thing that the Brackett family has been doing, that Bob has
Right.
been doing, and the hanging baskets and the pots and planters. So all of those things, that total package is what we hope to replicate in other blocks where it's appropriate. It may work in some and it may not work in others. So that's why we have to be very strategic in what area we want to focus in on next at duplicating this effort.
Well, I guess I have to show my ignorance and say that I'm really not cognizant of how extensive the light poles are and what areas they are and what areas they're not. So maybe you could give us a little indication of what you're aware. I mean, is this something you're going to need to do for the next extension, or do you have areas where there are poles that are not being utilized?
This is the only block that has the decorative street poles currently, and there are
I
8 of them, and
I have to
that's
say I wasn't aware of that.
right.
Everybody else probably was, but I wasn't.
Right. It was several years ago when they put them in. Again, that was what the focus was to, okay, here's this block. We're going to do it all here, and now we're going to
Okay.
go to the next one and see, where street poles would work, how many we'd need, and determine the funds that are going to be necessary to do it in that block. So when we come to you for that and ask for your help with the hanging baskets portion of that, we want to work with the committee about what block they would like to see done next and work with the city about, where do we want to go from here. So,
Tammy, I guess the next question would be, who paid for having those poles installed? Because I'm not aware of that either. Was it the city or was it
Main Street. Main Street, when the poles were installed, Main Street paid for that several years ago. And that was through a contract, actually. We worked with the city when that was done in the information that I've been able to find in the files and read in the files. And that cost $11,000 several years ago to have the streetlights installed. So it's not a small number, and that's why we really have to be strategic about where it's going to work best next and the economics of it and the fundraising portion to make it happen. And quickly, because we just don't want this to be this, for 2 or 3 years. We would really like to see this replicated in the next, maybe in the next season is do another block, so.
So could I ask a question? If Main Street paid for the streetlights, do they own them? Or were they deeded over to the city of Vero Beach in perpetuity?
Well, that's not a question that I have an answer to.
Okay.
That's something that I would require more research, Chris.
It's just a curious
Yeah, I'm
thought.
not sure. I would have to go back through, the records and get with Tammy Vach on that to find out.
And I think that's a very important question, especially as you think about adding light poles, because it's not unheard of for someone to lose control of a vehicle and take out a light pole. I'm not sure it's happened here, but it certainly has happened elsewhere in the city and in the county.
Right.
So from a monetary responsibility point of view, it would certainly be to your group's advantage if you can get the city to assume responsibility for them on an ongoing basis. And I think that's a very cogent question.
Right, exactly. So, yes, I'll check into it. I can certainly let you know.
Great. Nanette, do you know of any plans or discussions within city administration about adding other poles? I mean, have you heard any discussions about that?
No.
Okay.
No.
I just wondered. So it is something that would have to be addressed without question.
Absolutely.
And that kind of fundraising gets a little more difficult than what you've been able to do so far.
Right.
So,
We already had the infrastructure in place in the block, so it was just a matter of taking what was already there and doing what we had intended to do long ago. And now that we've got that accomplished, now we can start to set plans and move forward.
well, that's great. I would suggest that you at least consider as a committee, especially once you get most of your sponsorships filled, to think about coming back to the city and city council and make a presentation telling them what has been accomplished, showing them the finalization of what these look like once they have an opportunity to fill out, and see if you can get a buy-in from the city of Vero Beach to spring for the streetlight costs, because that would be, and the nice thing about that is if they do it, then there's no question about who owns them with an ongoing situation. Because without that, it certainly will be a much greater task to accomplish than, from a monetary point of view, than what you've been able to do at this point. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we'll certainly do that.
And that's going to take a little planning from the viewpoint of budgetary consideration, because
Right.
that's large enough that, with the review of all the budgets as we move forward here with the proposed utility sale and so forth and its impact, you can see, and I know Nanette knows that better than I do relative to her own department. So some planning to maybe get in before the next budget cycle might be something you might think about.
Absolutely. We'll certainly do that. I know that when Nanette was doing some research and helping me, we found out what the cost of those streetlights were. They're about $1,500 a piece. And the city actually contracted Gray Bar Electric to do the installation several years ago. So whether or not the city would do it on their own or subcontract to somebody else for installation, all those are questions that would have to be answered in the plan and the scope of things.
Yes, yeah.
So,
Well, that's great. Any other comments or suggestions from anyone?
The only question I have is Busy Bee, the baskets are planted now and are going to go through the end of spring. Is there going to be a change in the baskets for summer planting?
to my knowledge, at this point, I don't believe they're going to be changing out the plantings now that we do have irrigation to the pots, because that was a concern in the summer in the past because we didn't have irrigation in them.
Right.
But now that we have the drip, they may stay the same. I'm not certain if they're going to swap them out.
Gotcha.
I think a lot of it will depend on how well
The plant material makes it, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
the change in summer temperatures and humidity levels. That's one of the reasons I asked if there was any comments about the plant material.
Right.
Because to be honest, I have not compared, I didn't know what was in the baskets with our list, which were the suggested plant
Right.
material. I don't know if they conform to that or not.
Well, I think what's in there now, we're good through April, May at least, and then June. I guess you'll find out.
Right, exactly. We'll start
Well,
figuring
maybe I
things
could
out.
add to that because we donated the 2 pots in front of the Pocahontas, and we made a commitment to keep them fresh year-round
Right.
in long-term, 4 or 5 years, whatever it takes.
Right.
So I would think that all the other nurseries, you said, sign an agreement to the same thing?
Right, exactly. To keep the plant material fresh and
Right.
crisp, and they have the choice. It's an extreme pot planting. That's how it was sold to the nurseries. Is that it's like a competition. We want the nurseries to make sure that all those pots downtown are looking their best all the time. So we set it up that way with their nurseries, and we're certain that they're going to make sure that they look good.
Well, with their name on
Exactly.
them, that
Right,
kind of
they're representative.
encourages that kind of response and interest, and I think that's good, both from the viewpoint that people realize that they express community interest by doing it, and in the reverse cycle by realizing that if they don't look too good, it can reflect on them from a negative point of view, as well as the positive nature of being community spirited to do it in the first place.
Exactly. So
Right.
we're happy. We're happy with the outcome,
Great.
Yes.
Well,
Looks great.
and we
I
thank
think
you for your
should.
support.
Great. And, hopefully, you're going to get some coverage in the press, which would create more awareness.
Yes.
Because otherwise, people walking by would just assume that it was just the nursery and nobody else was involved. And in order for you to do future fundraising, they're going to need to know
Exactly.
who the motivating factor was in this whole project.
I would anticipate that we'll be having some things show up in the newspapers this week, probably,
Great.
since we sent it out last week.
Okay.
Very good.
If we have nothing else on that subject, why, we'll thank you for your
Thank you.
attendance today, Tammy.
You're
and,
welcome.
Thank you.
We appreciate the presentation also.
Oh, not a problem. Happy to
Great.
provide some interesting photographs.
Okay, anything else under old business? Okay, moving on into new business, we have a couple of tree dedication applications, and I think you have copies of both. And the first one is Kate Maxwell, and this is in Riverside Park. And it has the endorsement of the engineering department, so. Are there any questions? If not, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the Maxwell application.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. That is approved. Let me just sign that quickly. And the next one is Betty McCulley. And this is in Riverside also. Any questions concerning the application?
I just have a question
Yes,
in
ma'am.
terms of the dedication plaque. I don't know what the word is after my.
Son.
I'm sorry, son?
Sons.
Sons. Okay, thank you.
Great. Goodness. Mother losing two
Yes,
sons.
I was just thinking exactly the same thing.
Daryl, Dennis, and Michael.
Three.
Three.
God.
Okay. We have an application.
I so make a motion to approve application.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Thank you. The motion approved. Okay. Thank you, dear.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else under new business today?
The only thing that might be a potential area in the future for us to look at planting trees is the proposed, and it's not final yet, dog park area, if it does get finalized. I mean, we're very premature, but having a dog going there, there's no trees.
Yeah, did you see the proposed plan that they had?
No.
I thought they were.
They have a whole
Oh, they do, okay.
landscape plan. In
Good.
fact, Robin Polensky had drawn that up. So
Great.
there's a number of trees in there, and I believe that during that last presentation at the council meeting, they said that they had a nursery that was going to do all of the installation. And,
Wonderful.
Yeah, so I think they've got everything covered.
Perfect.
But if they do fall short, it would definitely be an area to.
Great.
Yeah.
Even better.
Is that an additional maintenance site for you?
My understanding was they're going to take care of everything.
Interesting.
Installation, maintenance.
Is there irrigation in there?
No, they're going to put irrigation in.
Wow.
Well, they talked, I listened to part of the presentation. I don't know why, I just happened to have it on, or Marcia had it on or something. And they were talking about expansive commitments from a number of people in the way of funding to do this.
Right.
So that's great.
Of course, it's all very preliminary.
Yes.
Very preliminary.
Yeah.
Right.
So I may have to go buy a dog so I can, because I only have a cat.
You don't have. You can just watch
I
the
don't-
other dogs.
I don't know if she's going to want to go. In fact, I know she will.
No, probably not.
Okay. Anything else under new business? Hearing none, let's move into the next item, which is the Treasury report. Madam?
Yes, the first Treasury report for 2014, we have $5,873.27 in the Tree Commission Fund, and then in the tree replacement, $22,178.45.
Okay. Is that a net figure of the money that we had allocated for the tree plantings that we were going to do?
The grant's not taken out of this yet.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I have to pay for everything up front out of my funds. Then we get reimbursed through the grant, so it will debit from here. I'm not really sure how the accounting works, but
Yeah.
This doesn't include.
About how much is going to be subtracted, just roughly?
I want to say it was 9,500, something like that.
And that was coming out of the 22.
Correct.
Yes.
Well, the portion of it was coming out of the 22 for the trees, and then the
Plant
the
material.
ground. Yes, the Serenoa and the Zamia was going to come out of the tree commission. So it was partial.
All right.
And
So
we
that-
are scheduled to do that planting next week. We were going to do it this week, but all that rain flooded the fields for
Yeah.
the sable, so we couldn't
it's
do
probably
it.
better
It
with
was
weather.
in retrospect, it is better because I wouldn't want to be planting trees this week and having that bad weather. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great. Chairman's matters. I really don't have anything under chairman's matters. I see some tree removal activities going on, and I sometimes wonder whether it's been permitted or not, but, short of stopping and asking why, it doesn't really. You can always call our office. Yeah, and maybe that's what we should do, just to make sure and kind of be the eyes and ears, because I know you don't have that many code enforcement officers. What do you have, 2 now? Okay. All right. So that's the only item under chairman's matters.
I have a question.
Under,
If they're removing a tree, don't they have to post something just as you would if you're constructing something?
not necessarily, no.
Well, wouldn't that be a good idea?
Well, she can explain
They
what
just
the
have
tree-
to have the tree removal application permit available.
But it doesn't have to be posted anywhere, so it can be seen as we drive by, just as you would if you were doing construction.
No, I understand what you're saying. It isn't treated like a building permit that
No.
has to be a public posting. No. That might be something, if and when the ordinance ever gets reviewed next, to consider doing, because it kind of answers that question, and it takes the sting out of somebody going through the process properly and then having people ask. And I don't know if people do that or not.
All the time.
Do they? They call you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We get lots of calls.
There's
Yes.
the gate.
Right.
We get lots of calls.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it would make life a little bit easier, and it would make it easier for other people to look at it and
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
well, okay, they've got a permit.
So, Gail.
When he
you
was
can-
inquisitive, you were inquisitive.
Yes, that's right. So you might just kind of file that away. I'm sure that's not going to occasion a renewal of the ordinance, but
Right.
when it comes up, why,
Sure.
that might be something to address. Okay. Anything else under members' matters?
I just, again, very happy to see the hanging basket thing kind of, not that it's resolved, but looks like it has solid management behind it, and they have a plan and financing, and it's, finally something that we can be proud of. And moving forward, expansion, feel comfortable that it's going to be well managed.
Yeah, I think I certainly agree with that and would endorse that. I think the next chapter is going to be a little more difficult to accomplish. And I have to say, as I admitted earlier, I wasn't aware where we had street lights and where we didn't have street lights.
Right.
So that's going to be a much more difficult nut to crack.
Well,
But of course, they still have to get funding for the
Yeah.
rest of their program.
That's what I was just going to say. I mean,
Yeah.
they still have, what did she say, 8 of those pots? 7 baskets and 8 or
Yeah,
9
and
pots?
then all the banners.
Right. So, yes, in the future, expansion is great, but let's try to fulfill.
Well, they're going to have to get that paid because that's out of their own treasury and out of their funding.
Right.
So I think that's a
It
given.
would just seem to me that there has to be a huge amount of business. I mean, one of the things I was thinking as Pam was speaking, it's Pam?
Tammy.
Tammy,
Tammy.
I'm sorry, was speaking. The Indian River Bar Association, lawyers love to publicize. I mean, it'd be great. There's got to be huge amount of groups who would sponsor something for it.
Well, and that's why the arts is so
Yeah,
important.
exactly. And your
and-
suggestion with Marcia is excellent.
Yeah, I mean, anything that they can come up with to, of course, their own website, but I just don't know what kind of.
Well, you have to know to look on the you have to know about the
Yeah,
program
and
to
I don't
look
know how
on the
many-
website.
Well, but I don't know how many people would go there in the first place and see it. You know, I mean, it's a
Right.
matter of the visitation level that they have, and I
Right.
just don't know that. But, so much of this is making sure you get to the right person in the press, because like with the PJ, I mean, there's an assignment editor. And stuff like that goes through the assignment editor. If he doesn't know about it, he can't assign it to
Right.
anybody.
Right.
But anyway, so if we get questions, and we may, as the Tree and Beautification Commission, at least we can direct people to the downtown group so that that can hopefully help solidify this first phase and get things moving. Okay, nothing under members' matters. Our next meeting date is February 20th. So if we would all kind of put that into our schedule, and unless there's something more to come to us today, the chair would appreciate a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Thank you. We're adjourned, and thank you for coming.